Hello and welcome back to another episode of Notion Bonsai, and in this video today we're going to be working on some Chinese elm, and I'm just going to be going over some pruning and shaping ideas that you can apply to your bonsai to make them just a little better year after year so that eventually you will have a great bonsai. Hello. This is the tree we're going to be working on in this video today. This tree has a really special place in my heart because before I owned this tree, this belonged to my grandmother who has now passed away. She had this tree for about maybe 1 or 2 years before she passed. It was just as I was beginning to get into bonsai, and one year for her birthday, my mom decided to buy this for her because she really loves gardening, and she's the one who actually got me into gardening. At a really young age, we used to grow tomatoes in her greenhouse. That was sort of like my first experience of gardening and what gave me the love for it. I think it's just really nice to have this tree still here for me to work on, even though she's not here. Rewind to like 2 years ago, after this tree was passed down to me, it was in quite poor health. The leaves were quite yellowing, pretty bare when I got it. Usually whenever you get a Chinese elm from like a big box store, which was how this tree was acquired, sometimes they come in poor health and you kind of have to revive them before you can then work on them as a bonsai. So with this one, when I got it, it had like 2 prongs of legs at the bottom. It looked like it had 2 legs. And one of the back branches was sort of like cheated. There were so many flaws with this tree that I tried to correct back then. And then eventually I noticed that this tree actually had begun rotting from the base. I really didn't want this tree to die. I ground layered / air layered the bottom of this tree, wrapped it in a ball of moss, removed the bark, got it to root further above the rot, and then I put it into this pond basket. After it established in the pot, I fed it heavily with a high nitrogen fertilizer, and as you can see today, it's got so much health, so much vigor, and I think now is a good time to come in and actually do some work on it now that its leaves are super green. Because of the high nitrogen, they have this lovely dark green. It's shooting out lots of branches. But if you're new to bonsai, I would just say if a tree is unhealthy and it's stressed, before working on it, you want to get it healthy, because if you add any extra stress to a tree that's already stressed, you could kill your tree. And now before we begin, the tools that we'll be using in this video today are some twig cutters, branch cutters, wire cutters, knob cutters, some bonsai tweezers, a toothbrush, and some gin pliers. And as always, by no means do you need to have all of these specialized bonsai tools. If you're new to bonsai and you're just getting started, you can get by with just a cheap pair of garden scissors or some secateurs. Whatever you have at your disposal to get a job done, you just want to make sure that whatever tools that you are using are clean and sharp. Clean so we don't introduce any bacterial or fungal infections to our trees, and sharp because a sharp pair of scissors will give you a much cleaner cut on a branch. And in horticulture, we learn that clean cuts heal so much faster and more efficiently than a blunt cut that was squashed by a dull blade. Whenever we come to a tree like this and we see this, massive branches that's sort of overgrown, it's a little bit out of control, it may be a little bit overwhelming for a beginner to come to this and see like, oh, what do I do? Which branches do I prune? I don't want to cut it in case I kill it. I'm going to start by saying that Chinese elms are extremely vigorous growers and they bounce back pretty well from pruning. So I am going to go quite harsh on this tree today, just to establish a good structure so that when it does grow again, all the branches that grow are going to be in nice places and we've set a good foundation for the future development. I'm going to start at the base of this tree and then work my way up. And the good thing about this tree, because it was bought as sort of a pre-bonsai starter tree, the trunk line inside, you can't really see it with all these branches, the trunk line already has a nice line to it. So a lot of the work is done here. All we really got to do is build the pads and structure of ramification. And whenever I say ramification, I'm going to take a branch off of this tree to explain what I mean. So this branch here, for example, ramification is the word that we give to how refined the structure of a tree is on the outer branches. So when I prune this branch like this, for example, like that, what will happen is at the end of this branch now, instead of it going and growing longer and longer and longer, it will send out side branches from this point. This is known as a bifurcation. So the branch goes from 1 and then splits into 2. Then you let that grow another year and you take them and then cut them in the same way, and then they split into two. So a branch will then go from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8, and it will just get better and better and better. And this is what I mean by refinement and ramification. The more ramified a tree, the more twiggy the branches are at the ends versus a tree that has low ramification. So when I prune this tree back today, what I'm aiming to do is set up like the first branch or even the second branch if there are some bifurcations on this already. And that way all the branches will then go from 1 to 2 to 4, etc. Of course, there are some exceptions to the rules. Some branches you may want to keep long if in the case that you don't want it to stop thickening yet, because the moment you take off the terminal end of a branch, the energy is redirected elsewhere and it slows down the development of a branch. So if you got a branch somewhere and you think, oh, that's quite not as thick as I want, just let it grow. Let it go even like a meter out in some trees, maybe 2 meters out until you get the desired thickness. And then later you can come back, prune it right in, and then build the structure from there. Some bonsai will look a little bit wacky when you are growing them like this, big shoots out all over the place, but trust the process. So I'm going to start on the bottom of this tree right here. And already there's a lot of congestion. There's branches going all over the place, weird directions. When I prune branches, I will also be pruning off what are known as problem branches, which are branches that don't aid in the final design of the tree. A problem branch, for example, is any branches growing in towards the center of the planting. Usually in a bonsai, you want this like nice flowing motion out to the ends. And if any branches are going in towards it, it can disrupt the visual flow of the composition. These branches back here, they're growing in towards the center. So what I'm going to do first is just shorten them, because sometimes right in here, having a little short branch with some leaves on it can contribute to the overall pad if it is kept short. So you don't always have to remove a problem branch in this case. You can just shorten it and keep it for later. Another problem branch are many of these ones here that's growing directly up. What I would love in the ideal world is if all of these branches grew laterally outward like this, but it is the nature of trees to grow up towards the sun. This is called heliotropism. Really cool word. I love words like this. This one's getting a little long. I'm gonna cut that back. I know I don't want all of this long, so everything's going to be compactified, brought in, so when it grows again, it'll grow out, and then we can bring it back again. But every time we prune back, let it grow, prune back, let it grow, it will get better and better. This branch is growing straight up. I'm going to shorten this. When I prune a branch like this, I always want to keep some leaves on the inside here. I never want to leave a branch completely bare, as this could die off. I'm just cutting back to nice green leaves. This one's growing. This one in particular, right here, this is growing at a really strange spot in here. It's growing at the elbow of a branch, and I don't want this, so I'm going to completely remove that altogether. Here at the end of this one, it's actually growing on two planes. If you can see here, there's one growing up and one growing down. I'm going to take off the top one. And then at the end of this branch, I'm just going to prune it here and here. So now this branch goes from 1 to 2. And then next year, here will go from 1 to 2. So you can see that bifurcation right there. I don't want to have this like absolutely, perfect bifurcations everywhere. It can look a little unnatural. There are some exceptions to the rule that is okay. Trees have their own sort of character, and there is natural differences, but I will try stay as close as I can to this. This branch is growing straight up and it's in a weird spot, so I'm going to completely remove that. Right at the end of this branch here, it looks a little strange. It goes this way. The flow's going right to the end here, which I really love. It's nice and lateral. Then there's this branch that goes off to the side, and I feel like it's crossing over this lower, thinner branch down here. And it's also a potential competing trunk line on the branch where it is the same thickness as the end. So for that reason, I'm going to deem this as a problem branch, and I'm going to cut this off. And I just feel that looks so much nicer. This is now set up to grow really nicely. This one, oh my goodness, I'm also noticing a little more problem branches. Another example of a problem branch isn't just branches growing straight up, but also branches growing straight down. I'm going to prune this one back here. I'm happy with this. Now I'm going to move up to this back pad over here. As you can see, a lot of it's growing over the top of this pad here, which I know I absolutely am not going to have, so I can just shorten all of these back. Now, if you are going to take cuttings, don't just aimlessly shorten branches back, because you may take them back even further again. So for example, I know this is quite a long shoot that would make a great cutting. Instead of like cutting it in half and cutting it in half again and wasting all this length, come in right in here. And then you've got this super long, great cutting to start a tree with. And actually, to grow Chinese elm from cuttings is super easy. You take the cutting. As a general rule with any cutting, you want the cutting planted half the depth as the cutting is long. So in this case, the cutting is this length. I'm going to go halfway and I'm going to strip off the leaves on the bottom half like this. And that is how deep you want the cutting planted. That way there's less chance of it moving and wobbling from the wind. We take a pot with some soil in it. If you want, you can take a chopstick. I like to use my bonsai tweezers and make a little hole, put the cutting in, water it, and then you want to put it in a nice warm and humid environment, as roots thrive in this kind of conditions. If you don't have a greenhouse or like a warm humid spot, what you can do, little life hack, take a plastic Ziploc bag, open it up, put the cutting and everything inside like this, and then just seal it up. I would keep it in here for like 2 or 3 weeks during the growing season. The best time to take cuttings I have found with Chinese elm is anytime between like early spring to mid-late summer. You just want to make sure it's in the growing season. That way, whenever it is planted, it's actively growing. When it's in the bag like this, there is the risk of fungal problems. So every like 2-3 days, come along, open the bag, air it out, close it back up again, even spritz some water inside just to keep it humid, and they should root. Actually, there's a cutting I took from something like this thin. It's like super thin. It started like this 2 years ago, and this is it now. I didn't do anything. I just wanted to see what would happen, and I let it do its thing. So in 2 years, you can get something that goes from a little thin branch to something, you know, as thick as your finger. If I put this in a much larger pot last year, it would probably be even thicker right now. As tempting as it is to want to cut bonsai and do work all the time, if you want a thick tree, just let it grow. I'm going to give this pad the exact same treatment that I give this first one. Now, just to isolate what is happening and so that you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to take a black plastic bag and simply cover all the other branches. These branches here are getting a little too long, so I'm going to shorten them into just the first set of leaves here and here. This branch is growing straight up, so I don't want that. This branch is growing in a weird spot, so I'm going to remove that. This branch is crossing and growing in towards everything here. This part of the pad over here looks still congested, and this is just because there's so many branches in this area. What I'd like to do is take this branch right here and have it in this position. That way it fills more of this space here, and it will make the bonsai look wider at the base. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wire this out to here. Now, when it comes to wire in bonsai, there's many different thicknesses of wire that we can use to wire our branches, and it may be a little confusing if you're just getting started. You know, what thickness of wire do I use to put on a branch? The wire that I'll be using in this video is aluminium bonsai wire. It's anodized. When it comes to the thickness, it's generally best to use the thinnest wire possible that you can that still holds the branch. So I've got 3 thicknesses here. I've got this 1.5 millimeter bonsai wire, and a good way to tell if it's going to hold the branch is to take the wire, hold it maybe 4 centimeters from the end, and I just simply push it against the branch. If the branch moves, this means that the wire is strong enough to hold this branch when you wire it. But in the other case, if I take my finger and the wire moves like that, it means that this wire isn't strong enough to hold it. So then I'd recommend going from 1.5 millimeter up to 2 millimeter. If that doesn't work, go 2.5 millimeter. That's some 2.5 right here. I'd say in general, when you're doing bonsai, 2.5 millimeter for shohin size trees like this one is the most used. If you're gonna buy wire and you don't have any other wire and you wanna buy one wire, 2.5 millimeter is a good one to start with. I'm simply going to take some wire, measure it along the length of the branch. I'm going to come from this branch over here to this branch. So I'm going to measure along here, right up to the end of this branch. Then taking the wire cutters, I'm simply going to cut this here. It is important that you use wire cutters on wire and not your nice bonsai scissors, because the metal can blunt the blades. Now, when we wire in bonsai, we use 1 piece of wire to wire 2 branches together. And even if the purpose is to wire only 1 branch, you still need to anchor the wire to another branch in some way. That way it can sufficiently hold the branch you want to move. So I'm going to start by placing this wire at the elbow of this branch, holding it there with my thumb. Let's just measure, see how much wire we've got. So I'm going to have about here. I'm going to wire around this way. Make sure we're not trapping any foliage under the wire, so we can just lift this out. I'm going to come around the trunk, and then we're going to go down this branch. So now that this branch is wired, I'm going to just simply take it, grab the length of the branch, and just gently pull it where I want it to be. I'm going to bring this down and then up at the end, like this. I don't like this part of the branch. It's growing straight up. I would rather, if this was gone, okay, I'm going to take that off. in the future I can develop branches on the outside of this elbow here. Whenever I take the wire off, maybe next year or the year after, this will backbud like crazy. Chinese elms backbud very easily. So I don't mind taking off this branch so that in the future I will plan to have some here. This branch, perhaps I could wire again and maybe take it more this way. This little branch is potentially going to be a problem branch as it's growing on the inside of a bend. If this continues to grow, we can get a swelling in this area. On the inside of the bend, it isn't really that nice looking. We get what's known as inverse taper, so I'm just going to remove this problem before it even starts. I feel like on the end of this pad, there already is a little inverse taper. Do you see here how it like swells up that way? Maybe it's a strange curve, but whatever this is, to me it just feels a little congested. So I'm actually gonna take this and shorten it right back to here. Maybe we'll get branches, maybe we won't. Even I'll just take it in here and then I will develop this pad from here. I'm going to remove this one growing in towards the center. Remove these little branches back here. I would like to cut back 2 branches further in, so what I'm going to do is prune these back here. And we're going to aim for back budding so I can push this growth back. And I'm just going to let this grow from here. It's really important that you always remember where the front of the tree is. So in my case, this is the front. So whenever I work on the tree or change something, I'm going back to see how it looks from the front. That way, if there's any mistakes or things that I don't want in the design, they do jump out at you. And whenever I'm styling this one, I'm going for a triangular shape. So I am aware that this is going to be the base of the triangle and it's going to come up like this. And now saying that, there is a serious problem with this tree. And that is the fact that it's got nice branches here, it's got a nice apex, it's got nice lower branches here. It doesn't have a branch right here to fill this space. And I think it would really benefit from having a branch here in the future. And I'm thinking, you know, there's a couple of ways that I could approach getting a branch here. And one of the methods that we use to put a branch in the place of somewhere where there is no branch is something called a thread graft. And this is simply drilling a hole through the trunk of the tree, like directly through the whole thing, then taking a branch that's still alive and still growing on the tree, pushing it through the hole where you want the branch to come out. This would be the branch. And then eventually, when this branch grows and thickens inside the hole that you have drilled, it will eventually become a new branch here and you can sever it from the back end. That is one option. Another option is just hope that we get back budding, which, you know, it may happen, it may not, and then we'll just naturally grow a branch right here. Another option is to completely remove this top half of the tree and have this as the leader and then tilt the tree up like this as the bonsai. I feel like that's a little extreme, but it is something we could do. If I were to reposition the branches maybe. I don't like that option so much. I feel like thread grafting is the way to go. So before we start on the thread graft, safety is important. Wear eye protection just in case something flies off. And now because we are, even in the same case with air layers where you sort of surgery a tree and open it up and expose the inner wood, it is extremely important that all the tools that you use are completely disinfected. And this includes not just your scissors, but also the drill bit that's going to be going through the tree. I'm going to take some of this hydrogen peroxide spray, just spray this onto the drill bit. This will kill off any potential bacteria or fungal spores. You also want to make sure that the drill bit that you're using is for wood, not metal or concrete or anything like that. A wood drill bit, and you'll know it's for wood because it will have a guide point on the end that's for stabbing into wood. And this is really one of the only cases in bonsai where you can decide exactly where you want a branch to be. It's really quite an incredible technique. I'm going to take this branch and position it where I think would look best. So I'm thinking this upward angle like that. It is also worth noting that if you do a diagonal slice through the tree at an upward angle like that, there is going to be more damage than if you were to go straight through. So I think in this case, I'm going to go straight through, and then once it establishes, I'll wire it up. So this is actually a few different branches I could choose. So as a general rule, when doing a thread graft. You want the drill bit twice the thickness as the branch is thick, but not any more than half the thickness of the trunk. So in this case, I think this is just a perfect drill bit, twice the size. And as an emerging point, right on the outside of this bend, right here is where I want it to emerge. So I'm gonna stab through here like this, and we're gonna go nice and gently through this. All right, so we've gone the whole way through the trunk. I'm just gonna spin this around. Now, whenever you come out the other end, it does sort of bust the bark. I'm gonna go clean this up a little. So to clean this up, I'm just going to take the drill bit now and just push it through so that it comes out the other side, just like that. And then with a clean and disinfected grafting knife, I'm just gonna push down around the edges of the bit, get a nice clean cut on there. I have decided that this branch is the one that I want to put through the trunk just because it's growing at a nice angle here already. I'd love to just take this, push it through the hole and hope that all the leaves stay on it, but unfortunately, I know all these leaves are just gonna snap off, just like you've seen me pull them off the cutting. So we do need to protect this branch before we push it through the hole in the trunk. And to do this, I'm going to use some grafting tape. This is some Japanese grafting tape, so it does have a little bit of a stretch to it. So I'm simply going to take a little length of the grafting tape, cut it here. So to wrap the branch, I'm going to take this grafting tape and just tie a knot at the base. This will just anchor it in place. That way it doesn't slide at the bottom when we try and roll it around, just like this. And then I'm going to fold the leaves upward. Chinese elm's leaves tend to fold up like this. This is the safest way to wrap them around this branch. And as I wrap, I'm just keeping this grafting tape as flat as I can. That way I get more coverage. I'm just gently holding these leaves together and then wrapping them. And then at the end, it's just going to make a little point like this. That way we have a little point to push through the hole. I'm gonna take this, cut it, and now comes the fun part. We gotta get this that we've just wrapped through the hole that we drilled. So I'm just gonna take this. Push it through the hole. See how easy this goes through the tree once you've got the branch nice and wrapped. That way we're not damaging any of the leaves. Very gently, just take your time with this. See here, there's like a kink on the branch right here. If I were to pull this through, it could snap here. So I'm gonna relieve the pressure of that by pushing on it and then pulling it through at the same time. All right. So now I've got to the point where I've tied the knot. So here, now that this is at the other end, I can just simply unwrap this and free all of the leaves. Look at that. Safe and sound through the hole. I'll pull this back a little bit. I'm gonna cut the knot. And then we can just simply pull out the grafting tape. And as you can see, we just push this branch the whole way through. I wanna push it through as far as I can go because the more we have here, the better. So I'm going to push this till it's really tight through there. I'm going to remove this, so more of the energy, instead of it going to that side shoot of that branch, is going to go to the end. So this is a close-up of how the branch is emerging from the hole we drilled. And as you can see, there is a little bit of wiggle room. And usually in bonsai, if there is movement, this is not good. When you repot a tree, if there's any wiggle movement, this hinders roots from developing. If you're trying to wire branches and they move, they won't wire in the same place. And in this case, it's one of the principles of bonsai, I would say, is movement is bad. If this is going to be moving around, then it won't fuse correctly with the edges of the hole that we drilled. So what we're going to do is the toothpick method. And this is essentially that if there is a gap in a thread graft like this, we're going to take a toothpick. You could also use something like a bamboo skewer. And what we do is take the toothpick, insert it into the hole. And essentially what we're doing is forcing the edge of the branch to be in good contact with the side of the hole. We can actually speed up the rate in which this fuses. You don't have to do this method, but this is just something that I find just makes it a little bit faster. So I'm gonna push the toothpick through. This toothpick is a little small, so I'm gonna take another one. Now I've got 2 toothpicks in the hole. That has really restricted the movement on this branch. Then with the branch cutters, I'm just going to cut the edges of the toothpicks. That way it's nice and flush with the tree. And then I'm going to do the same at the back. And now here at the end, I'm just going to apply some cut putty. I would say this is an essential part of any thread graft that you do. You really want this to be secured in place. So I'm just going to push this around here like this. I don't want any moisture from the rain getting into this cut that could cause any fungal problems inside. And I also don't want any moisture from the tree escaping on hot days. I'm really just ensuring that this is a nice tight seal around this. I'm not worried about using too much cut putty here. I really want this to survive. And I'm also going to seal up the other end. And it really helps if you have cut putty that's antifungal. This particular one is. And it's actually available on my store at notionbonsai.com. I make this. I'm just going to come around here. I can't reach under here with my fingers, so I'm just taking a little piece of wire and using that as like a spatula to seal it up. And it really helps when using cut putty if your finger is wet. That way it doesn't stick to your finger and only sticks to the tree. Moving up to the next part of the tree, now I'm going to prune this pad and then I'm going to work on the apex. So here, as you can see, there's this branch growing straight down. I'm just going to apply the same principles that I did on the branches lower down to everything else here. Being very careful not to lose sight that we just did a thread graft. And while working here, prune it off and then be like, oh, it's gone. The apex on this one is a real challenge because on this section of the tree where it's very straight, there was a back branch that was going to fill this place. The actual joint of the branch was very damaged and fragile, so I had to remove it. So now this part of the tree has no branches, so I'm just going to hope in the next couple of years we're going to get back budding. So I'm going to pretend there is a branch here for now. I'm just going to shorten everything back. I want to keep some branches on the top because in order for this tree to keep developing and thickening, if you prune back a lot of the terminal ends, this does encourage back budding further down, along with light being actually able to reach the inner branches. So I don't think I want this tree much taller anymore. I think if this was a final height, you know, if you had the triangular shape there, that would be a nice tree. So I am going to stop it growing anymore. I'm going to top it here like that, just shorten everything back. And now we have reached a competing trunk line again at the top. Branches that are the same thickness. I could take this, bring it down, create a side branch from there, but I don't really feel like I want this tree to be any, this feels too tall already up here. As you can see, if I zoom out, I kind of want this to be the apex height. So in order to encourage taper, I feel it's best to remove this. That is one option. Another option is remove this, keep all of this, and then simply shorten it. But because this branch is thinner than this, I feel like long term it is going to be so much better if we cut it like this. Yeah, look at that. Oh my goodness. So if I just show you the whole composition, see how short this little tree is becoming. So I am just going to refine this cut a little. I don't want to cut too close, but I do just want to improve the taper. And then I'm going to take some of my cut putty, put that on here, and then I'm going to wire this up. On that is all I'm going to do on this tree for today. And there you guys have it. On that, I'm going to end off this video right here. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like down below. It really helps out the channel a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And hit the hype button. I don't know what that does yet, but it's there. And please let me know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. If there's anything you would have done differently. I'm always open to new and different ideas in bonsai. If you would like to support me in the things that I do on this channel, hit the thanks button down below. Or if you'd like to become a channel member, hit the join button. That way you'll get early access to new videos before they go out to everyone else. And you will get access to membership posts. But on that, thank you so very much for watching.